The council's budget for 2021-2023 details a cut of £400,000 to the subsidy provided by the council to schools for free school meals. Surely, however, it is dressed up. Any cut to free school meals in the current context is something that the council would avoid, especially as the North East has the highest uptake of free school meals in the country. Councillors also need to take into account the amount of real-term funding that has been cut from schools over the years. In 2020, 59 out of 86 schools in Newcastle were in a funding crisis. There was a shortfall of £9.6 million, a loss of £239 per pupil. If the council takes a stand and does not cut the free school meals subsidy, then schools can use more of its budget on other areas. The budget claims the cut will not impact children or eligibility for free school meals. However, no information has been given on what the cut actually means in practice. There needs to be complete transparency on this issue. The subsidy has obviously been needed up until now. I find it difficult to understand how suddenly it is no longer needed and that nearly £500,000 cut will have no negative impact anywhere along the line for free school meals or in Newcastle schools generally. So my questions, where exactly in the provision of free school meals will the money be cut from? How will eligibility for and quality and quantity of free school meals be protected? Will schools have to cover the shortfall? If so, how will schools cover the shortfall? Has funding been found elsewhere? If so, when will it be paid? How much is it and how long will it last? What is the total amount the council pays towards free school meals currently, and where does this money come from? How many schools have you discussed this with in Newcastle? Have schools received increased ring-fence funding specifically for free school meals? If so, how much does this amount to and how long will it last? What percentage of funding that schools receive covers the cost of free school meals in Newcastle? It's not good enough that every year we hear that responsibility for the cuts does not lie with Newcastle Labour Council, but with the Conservative government. Of course, we know the government are intent on slashing funding and services for working class communities. However, they would not have been able to administer this if it was not for the complete lack of opposition from Labour councils up and down the country. The Tories haven't had a single councillor in Newcastle since 1996. On the 3rd of March 2010, a budget which made cuts of £10.3 million to services was voted on. I mean, at the time, Newcastle was a Lib Dem run council and 24 Labour councillors abstained on that vote. Surely Newcastle Labour councillors could make a stand to defend the interests of our poorest children in cash-strapped schools by not voting in favour of a budget which includes a cut to free school meals. Thank you.
Again, Councillor Stevenson to respond.
Thank you again, Lord Mayor, to explain the budget proposal, which will have no consequence on the provision of free school meals. This proposal will not have any effect upon eligibility. If this administration believed that any child would be negatively affected, this proposal would simply not be on the table. The backstage economics are more complex, so allow me to have a quick trot through the detail. Newcastle School Catering Service provides meals in 76 schools across the city. The school food plan sets out the national policy and standards which we adhere to. The school food standards are intended to help children develop healthy eating habits and ensure that they get the energy and nutrition they need across the whole school day. 75% of our meals are prepared from scratch in our own school kitchens. We are using environmentally sustainable and ethical food produce, either meeting or exceeding UK animal welfare standards, making healthy eating easy, and wherever possible, using seasonal produce from local suppliers. Schools receive funding directly from government to fund free school meals based on 100% of their eligible pupils. The council charges schools a fixed price per meal for the number of meals taken each day by eligible pupils. The actual take-up levels of preschool meals is significantly lower than the numbers of eligible pupils that the funding is based on. The proposed increase is needed to recover the full cost of providing preschool meals for eligible pupils. It will have no impact on schools' budgets or on families. The price per meal has been fixed since 2015 with no inflationary uplifts. There has been a full consultation with schools on the proposed increase, and we have received no objections. All schools have been invited to briefings. All schools have received the full information. Thank you again for the opportunity to correct some of the inaccuracies being disseminated about this, and to clearly state yet again that this backstage economics will categorically not impact upon children and their families. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. Again, you've got up to 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, I can understand backstage economics, but I still feel that there isn't transparency here because it's nearly £500,000 of cuts, and we still don't know how this is exactly going to affect schools. Surely it's going to have some impact somewhere along the line. And to me, £345 million of cuts since 2010. We have had Labour councillors that have voted against the cuts. In 2013, there were Hull councillors, Southampton councillors that voted against the cuts. I think they had to leave the Labour Party as a result of that. I just want to know what will it take before councillors put up any real resistance to these cuts. Even with Corbyn as leader of the Labour Party, he wrote letters to councils instructing them that they have to set so-called legal budgets. In other words, they weren't allowed to vote against the cuts. It was then written into the Labour Party manifesto a year later to say that if you're a Labour councillor and you vote against cuts or abstain on them, you could face disciplinary measures. I think, yeah, but what of it? You could be punished, but what of it? Working class communities are being punished enough as it is, and I think it's about time Labour councillors stood up to vote and fight these cuts. It just seems to me that you can't actually, in deeds and not just words, be a member of the Labour Party as a politician and also be against austerity.